This is the U-boat. Even for those with only a passing interest in military history, the shape itself carries an immense weight. It's the symbol of a technological terror that stalked the North Atlantic, brought Great Britain to the brink of starvation, and defined undersea warfare for a generation. It's the boat of the Wolf Pack, the star of countless films, and the unassailable benchmark of the Battle of the Atlantic. But that is the legend. By 1943, that legend was dead. The U-boat force was being annihilated, and in that desperation, German engineers were racing to build a secret weapon in response. This new design was a true submarine, a predator that could sprint faster underwater than on the surface, a hunter that could breathe without surfacing, and a killer that could reload its torpedoes in minutes. It was a boat designed to make the Allies' anti-submarine tactics completely obsolete. Of all of Hitler's Wunderwaffe, or wonder weapons, this was the one that had the greatest potential to truly change the course of the war. This was the secret weapon that came too late. This was the Type XXI. The most important thing to understand is how the U-boats of the early war operated. As later assessments made clear, they weren't submarines proper, but submersibles, diesel torpedo boats that could briefly hide underwater. Their design was a compromise. On the surface, their diesel engines made them fast hunters, but underwater, their performance was abysmal. At high speed, batteries were quickly exhausted, on the order of an hour or two, and submerged pursuit of even a slow convoy was essentially impossible. For 3 years, this flaw didn't matter. The famed Wolfpack tactic was almost exclusively a surface operation, using diesel speed at night to attack like torpedo boats. Submerging was mainly to lie in wait or escape. But by 1943, the Allies had adapted. The skies were full of Allied aircrafts, and escorts now had improved radar, sonar/ASDIC, and high-frequency direction finding. This turned the U-boat's surface speed into its greatest liability. The moment a captain surfaced, he was visible for miles on a radar screen, and his only defense was to crash dive. Forced to rely on its poor underwater performance, the U-boat was now too slow to hunt and couldn't stay down long before its batteries died and its air grew stale. They needed to innovate, and they needed a wonder weapon. Enter Helmut Walter, a brilliant engineer. Walter understood the problem. The U-boat was chained to its air-breathing diesel engine. His solution was to get rid of the air. He proposed a revolutionary closed-cycle turbine that ran its own oxidizer, high-test hydrogen peroxide, allowing a boat to remain submerged as long as its fuel supply lasted. His testbed, the V80, proved the concept by achieving a submerged speed of about 28 knots, unheard of for the era. But it was a logistical and technical nightmare. The turbine was complex, the fuel was dangerous, and the engine was voracious. It required colossal amounts of oxidizer. To solve this, Walter designed a new hull, later designated Type XVIII, with a figure 8 cross-section, the upper loop for crew, engines, and torpedoes, the lower loop as a huge perhydrol tank. By 1943, however, the Walter boat was still a fascinating but impractical experiment. The technology was too complex and too risky, and Germany was out of time. Germany needed something it could field quickly. The solution was a brilliant compromise. Naval engineers kept the hydrodynamic figure-8 pressure hull form, but threw out the peroxide turbine, filling the lower loop with an enormous increase in battery capacity, roughly triple that of earlier designs. This was the birth of the Type XXI Elektroboot, designed point by point to solve every fatal flaw of the old submersible. The U-boat's trap was its need to surface for air, and the Type XXI had a snorkel and a retractable intake that let it run diesels and recharge batteries while at periscope depth, dramatically reducing surface exposure. Its power plant was also immense. The lower hull held 6 battery divisions totaling 372 cells, about triple the capacity of a Type 7, which fed 2 main electric motors rated about 2,470 HP each. That produced a submerged top speed of around 17.2 knots, faster underwater than on the surface. It also had 2 smaller creeping motors for ultra-quiet slow speed. To cut radiated noise, machinery, especially the creeping motors, was resiliently mounted on bonded rubber. And to turn the shafts in silent mode, the creeping motors used a V-belt drive, 12 individual leather V-belts, isolating vibration before it reached the propeller. It was exceptionally lethal. The boat had 6 bow torpedo tubes and a hydraulically assisted loading system that enabled very rapid reloads, on the order of a second full salvo in minutes and multiple salvos within tens of minutes. A post-war US Navy assessment concluded that there was no practical defense against it at the time. But this revolutionary boat was defeated by its own production schedule. Dönitz concluded that only an industrial-scale miracle could deliver enough boats in time, and he ceded tight naval control over design and construction to Albert Speer's Armaments Ministry, which put Otto Merker, an automotive production specialist, in charge. The plan was radical. Build the Type XXI from 8 large prefabricated sections, barge them to 3 assembly yards, and weld them together on something like an assembly line. The target was to launch the first boats in April 1944 and reach on the order of 30 per month by mid-1944. It was, as later studies argue, a leap straight from drawing board to mass production without adequate prototyping, and it was a catastrophe. Inexperienced inland plants couldn't hold tolerances. The required 2mm precision proved impossible. Some sections arrived with deviations up to 3 centimeters and had to be stretched, shrunk, or split and patched to make them fit, all as Allied bombing hammered yards and waterways. The first boats were riddled with flaws. The showpiece early hull leaked so badly at launch it needed pontoons to stay afloat. By late 1944, many problems were mitigated, but the war was nearly over. In the end, 118 Type XXI boats were completed, and only 2 ever sailed on war patrols before the end of hostilities. On April 30th, 1945, U-2511 under Korvettenkapitän Adalbert Schnee departed Bergen for the Caribbean. On May 4th, Dönitz ordered all U-boats to cease hostilities. A US Navy post-war judgment was blunt. Had Type XXI reached the Atlantic in numbers a year earlier, it would likely have had a serious effect on the war at sea. When Germany surrendered, the Allies divided the fleet and studied what they'd captured, only to realize their own submarine forces had been rendered obsolete. The US Navy launched the Guppy program to graft 3 key 21 ideas onto its wartime boats: a streamlined hull/bridge, a snorkel, and greatly increased battery capacity. In parallel, the new Tang-class was designed explicitly to incorporate the best features of the Type XXI. The Soviets followed with Project 613, a mass-produced conventional submarine strongly influenced by the 21's hydrodynamics and battery-heavy philosophy. The Royal Navy's Porpoise-class and its follow-on Oberon were, in many ways, influenced by the Type 21's focus on quiet, submerged performance. France's Narval-class drew directly on its captured Type 21. Even Sweden's Hygiene-class was a direct descendant of 21-style thinking. In the end, the Type 21 didn't win the war for Germany, but it fundamentally changed underwater warfare. It was the wonder weapon that came too late to save its creators, but its revolutionary concept became the blueprint for post-war submarines around the world. But what do you think? What if Germany's production miracle hadn't failed? If 100 of these Elektroboot had made it into the Atlantic in mid-1944, could they have truly changed the course of the war? Was this the weapon that could have severed Allied supply lines, or a desperate, complex gamble that inevitably arrived too late? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you learned something new.